The next team I want to chat about is the Red Bull team. So we've got Max Verstappen versus Yuki Tsunoda, who's brand new to the team after the Chinese Grand Prix failure for Lawson, who's now been replaced, and he heads to the RB team, so the Racing Bulls, and his seat has been taken by Yuki Tsunoda. There's a whole podcast about that on our YouTube channel. Coops and Sean digest their thoughts on the Red Bull problem and whether it was the correct decision to promote Yuki instead of Lawson. So if you head over to the YouTube now, you can by all means watch that and kind of hear what Coops and Sean had to say about that once the news had dropped. But Coops, would you like to surmise what kind of decision you came to between the both of you? Was it a good decision? Was it the right decision? Wrong decision? Too soon? Are Red Bull too brutal? What are the key points from that podcast that you'd like to kind of get across here while we talk about the Japanese Grand Prix?
Well, the key point and the biggest thing I think that everyone noticed is it's clear that Red Bull made a mistake in bringing Lawson in the first place.
Yeah.
And the dynamics within Red Bull as a racing team now is completely different. It's not Dietrich Mateschit's baby anymore, where he allows the guys to just get on with it. There's a board of people that are answerable. And the biggest thing I think that Sean and I kind of agreed on in that video piece was that this does not look good, however you spin it, for Red Bull in any way, shape, or form. They decided to overlook Tsunoda for Lawson, made it pretty clear that Tsunoda was never really going to get into Red Bull. And then 2 races into the season, they're bringing him up. And you're like, really? Okay. The other side of it is, this is a win-win for Yuki Tsunoda. Because if he doesn't do anything in that second car and gets beat by Lawson, or he's out in Q1 and Lawson's in Q2, then it's the car. But then if he gets into the top 10, or, as he actually is quoted as saying he wants to get on the podium, then wow, he'll be like, you should have picked me in the first place.
Yeah.
It's probably the best place for a driver to be ever in Formula One at the moment. It's kind of indicative of how Red Bull have treated their drivers for a long, long time. And I don't know where they go from here. The biggest thing you have, and this is probably something I never mentioned, this is thought of just now, but, as a young driver in Formula One, trying to go up the ranks within motorsport, Red Bull come to you and say, we'll pay for everything and do it all. The sport is in such a way when you're in the grassroots that you need that, but you also have to be wary of the fact this is Red Bull. And how many careers have been ruined by the way it's been treated, or the way that Red Bull have treated the drivers, or maybe the expectation that they put on their young drivers. Like, I think the phrase I've heard when I were talking about this in other podcasts was that Max Verstappen's this unicorn driver, which is a very good way of kind of phrasing it. That you don't get these drivers every year or every 2 years. They're generational talents for a reason.
Yeah.
And the problem is that there seems to be this undercurrent of subconscious thing or bias within Red Bull that if you don't get close to Max, you're out. But 99% of the people that probably race against Max are never going to beat him. That's why there's only a handful that have managed to beat him over the years once he got in the machinery that he could drive to win championships. The drivers that haven't beat him are still good drivers. They could probably still win a championship. Depending on Max does. If Max isn't there, they probably could have won championships or won races or been really good and done well. So, Red Bull, they made the call. I think there's talk that it was Lawson was Horner's pick, but not Marco's pick.
Yeah.
But regardless, there's still a lot of difficult questions from a lot of people within Red Bull of, why? If it's you've lost faith within 2 races, why was he there in the first place?
Yeah. There obviously wasn't a lot of confidence with him at that, even early on anyway.
No. And I mean, if you looked in, I touched on this on the one with the podcast with done with Sean. There was actually rumours that they went to Alpine to ask for Colapinto to
Oh
then get
wow, okay.
rid of Lawson altogether. So they were going to put Colapinto in the car along with Hajar and put Yuki Tsunoda in the Red Bull. But then Christian Horner comes out with the statement that this is as much about protecting Liam Lawson as it is promoting Tsunoda. No, you don't. Red Bull don't protect their drivers.
I don't
It's
care.
just not how it works within Red Bull. Outwardly, anyway, and I mean, we don't have insider knowledge. Outwardly, they don't come across like the protector drivers, and it's either they don't understand the young drivers, the expectations are too high, or they just want a second Max Verstappen. Pretty much all of them is unsustainable, and they're in a situation now where if you didn't put Lawson in the Red Bulls or the Racing Bulls or whatever you call them this year, who did he put in it?
Mm,
They're having to go to another team to ask to borrow a driver for a season, if that is true, when they're
mm.
supposed to have a young driver academy. It's a very bizarre and very mismanaged and borderline incompetent way of managing their young driver.
Yeah, obviously we can't confirm that that did actually happen. That's kind of
No, no,
speculation and rumor at this point.
yeah.
But it wouldn't be unlike Red Bull to do such a thing.
The,
Timo, I'm
the,
keen to get your opinions on this
before
as
before I
we.
jump over to Timo, sorry, the Colapinto thing is there is an element of truth because they actually Red Bull were kind of keen on him at this during last season. The word within the paddock was that kind of cooled his Colapinto's kind of form kind of dipped away before he finished his year. But they were Red Bull, I think Helmut Marko, I think, and Horner did have their eye on him initially. They were keen on him at one point. So there is some kind of thread of truth, I would like to think. Whether or not there was any kind of official reach out to Alpine to
Approach.
get him or approach, you know. But there has been Red Bull have been interested in Colapinto at some point in the recent past.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. Now over to Timo, and I'd like to get your thoughts on the whole Red Bull situation. I want to know as well, the car. They've made the car obviously this kind of really pointy, kind of really extreme difficulty setting, as it's been described previously. Is it their design of the car that's the problem? Are they just designing it for Max and not for a general kind of driver to come in and step in? And is that the problem? Are they should they design the car to be more readily drivable for a wider kind of style for the other drivers around the paddock? And is that something that they should maybe focus on for the future? Is developing that second car to be actually better to drive for other people because clearly not everyone is a Max Verstappen.
Short answer, yes, and Verstappen said as much in recent days, I believe. And I think it's important to highlight that that's just one of the problems that they've got there. So, a caveat I want to add to Coops is that yes, they perhaps shouldn't have brought Lawson in, but it's the way in which they brought him in that they shouldn't have brought him in. If they were serious about him, they should have done what Mercedes did with Kimi Antonelli and prepare him to be driving in this top team in this car as much as possible. That
Mm.
means more than just sticking you in a junior team, which is a very different car, let's not forget as well. Not just from last year to this year, but from that car to the Red Bull. So even
Yeah.
if you have 9, 10, 11 Grand Prix in that car, doesn't mean you're going to be able to nail it in the Red Bull straight away. Why was he not testing in older Red Bulls where you can get a feel for the general idea of it? And if your style of driving is different from Verstappen's, but the car is designed more to suit him, at least by driving previous iterations outside of the cost cap regulation, you can start to adapt to that. So if they're not going to change the design of the car, even if they should, you can start working on adapting your own driving style to try and eke the most out of that.
Mm.
And Yuki being in this position now, obviously it's what he wanted, but I don't know if it is the best place for any driver to be right now because, in theory, for this one Grand Prix, I can agree with that. But if, as I think it's to be believed, that he has a contract as much as those are worth sometimes in Formula One for the rest of the season with Red Bull, if by the end of the season he's say doing better than Lawson was doing in the two chances he got, but still not exactly lighting up the timesheets. That could be his career done as well then, and we can add him
Mm.
to the many corpses that Red Bull have tossed aside over the years in the form of young drivers. And it does make you think that if a driver with 4 seasons of experience in your junior team that you say is perfect preparation for Red Bull can't do anything with that, then that doesn't look great for anyone involved, especially not Yuki, because he's been talking the talk as much as you have to as a driver, but no one cares about the other day. If you don't have the results,
Mm.
as much as people that were incredibly pro Liam were going and looking into the details of what happened and all of this and this, a lot of people won't care about that. They'll watch the Drive to Survive episode, they'll see P20, P19, and that'll be all they'll care about. And it'll be the same for Yuki, and you'll see how quickly that turns immediately. And just think it's a high risk, high reward situation because if he nails it, like Coop said, he's sorted. And how long for, we don't know. Even Perez only had about a season and a half worth of good time in that car before his performance dipped for a multitude of reasons. So if he struggles with it, what chance does Yuki have, even if it does go right? Who knows? But
Mm.
if he fails, Red Bull look again incompetent because they're again hoping that a driver that's been in a different car and hasn't changed teams in that time is just going to be able to adapt. And they're also hoping that he can not match Max because then that causes more headaches for them, but match him enough to be a good team player and a good number two driver. But if you're Yuki Tsunoda and you're getting this opportunity to top spot, are you going to want to play ball? Would you rather have a chance in a top team and throw everything you've got at trying to get podiums and wins? And championship probably a bit ambitious, but he'll do his best to try and do that if he can. Or are
Yeah.
you going to play the team game and go, I'll help Max out? I think I know which a lot of people would do, including most of the drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. But they know where the bread's buttered, don't they, as well? So are they going to try
Well,
and rock the boat too much when they've got a seat to risk that
depends
seat?
on how much his relationship still ties in with Honda, their relationship with Aston Martin. If he's only there, as many people believe, because Honda wanted him there in the first place, then
Mm.
in theory, he knows where his bread button. It's not Red Bull. He can just go off with Honda and make do with them.
Yeah,
But
yeah. But that's
it's
got a whole nother kind of relationship to kind of crack in the team owner slash team son dynamic of the Strolls and Aston Martin before they get rid of anyone like that. Coops, you were saying?
yeah, it's I think it came out that Honda gave about 10 million to sweeten the deal to get him into the Red Bull for the Japanese Grand Prix.
Hmm.
And it seems to be that this is probably Yuki Tsunoda's last year at Red Bull for under the kind of Red Bull market or marquee. I mean, if he comes up and he does what he needs to do, which for Red Bull, he needs to be in the like probably the top five regularly,
Mm.
get into the Q3, get a run about the top five, and he just literally needs to be the rear gunner for Max. And if Max is having a horrible race, he gets the points instead. That's literally
Yeah.
all Red Bull want him to do. Uh,
Yeah, they need
but
points in the constructors. That's it. They need somebody who's going to bring points in for the constructors because
yeah,
they
I
want to
mean,
win both.
yeah, well, I mean, Red Bull mismanaged the Perez situation. We all knew that Perez was going to cause issues with the championship with the constructors. They decided to give him a new contract when his form started to dip and it never got any better. I mean, the funniest part of Sergio Perez and Red Bull was the video of him coming down the stairs in the yacht after he'd won in Monaco, uh, holding one shoe and the other shoe in the water. Uh, I mean, that's amazing. Round of applause for that. But when he got in the car, he put it in the wall. So
Mm.
yeah, it's just a really bizarre situation that's been built up for years. And for a team that has this unbelievable extra thing and a second team that they can get their data from and put their young drivers in to mismanage it so spectacularly well over the years.
Mm.
You know, it's bizarre. And there's a lot of intelligent people within the Red Bull, company within the racing side. Like there's going to be the odd dud here or there that isn't going to work out and you get rid of. And we've seen it in the past. I mean, I can't remember the gentleman's name. He drove in Super Aguri, I think it was. And he did about 3 races and the FIA went, oh, and took his super license off him because even they realised he was very good. I need to go and
Who was that? I
remember
can't
his
remember
name.
that.
I remember the
Yeah,
situation, I remember the car, but I just can't
yeah.
place the
No, I
name.
know. No.
Uh, Is it Yada or something like that? Maybe. Anyway, so we do know there are situations where drivers have to get pointed out, and there's all sorts of great stories about that. I mean, Neil Jordan, but we've just lost Eddie Jordan the last couple of weeks. One of his drivers ended up in jail, and that's how they ended up having to get another driver in back in the early 90s. I think that's how maybe Michael Schumacher ended up in Jordan for something similar. So,
Would it have been Yuki Ide?
Ide, that might be it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's was it a
Four
couple of times.
races before he got replaced, and I'm thinking it might have been him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he was that good that the FIA took his super license
License
off
of
him. Yeah.
Well, it was three retirements and one 13th place, so I don't know why they thought that was the good idea.
Yeah, that team didn't
Yeah.
last very long, to be fair.
Just for the safety of the rest of the drivers on the track,
Yeah.
I guess. But but yeah, the same sort of thing could happen. I want to mention that Max Verstappen wasn't happy about the Lawson switch. He thought that Lawson deserved a
Of
bit more
course he
time.
is.
But yeah, it keeps the spotlight off him, I guess.
It
Having
was also interesting seeing that post from Guido van der Garde and the various F1 drivers that liked it in
mm,
a kind of interesting form of solidarity that goes by without needing to do too much on their part, but tells everyone exactly what you need to know.
yeah, just a quick like on a post. Yeah, absolutely agree. But and Helmut Marko's come out and said, he's entitled to his opinion. That's pretty much, you know, all you
Could
could
they
say about
really
it. But
say anything else when it's your marquee man you spend all the money to? He's the one that's winning your races and he has an opinion and you're really going to turn around and say something. I mean, even
mm,
Helmut Marko knows that he's not a young driver that you can say some bullshit against, can you, really?
mm, exactly. Okay, so how do we think the Red Bull car is going to act at the weekend? Obviously, in the capable hands of Max Verstappen. Let's leave Tsunoda out of this because it's going to be his first kind of probably like a Bambi type deer around the racetrack at first. I think for Tsunoda, but Max Verstappen in his hands. Timo, how do you think he's going to do? Do you think he's going to go well? Is the car going to be quite strong in Japan?
Could be top 10, knowing Verstappen. That bit shouldn't be in doubt unless something goes wrong. Aside from that, tricky because we've seen with the McLaren, with the Mercedes, with Ferrari, they're all in there fighting hard,
Mm,
and it was Ferrari messing up essentially that has helped Verstappen be where he is in China. But
hmm
then at the same time, you've still got the McLarens and Mercedes to contend with, and if you can't get past those, which depending on the circuit you might not be able to as much as you want, you're going to have to settle for fifth at best. And if the Ferraris can keep their noses clean, then that's going to be even harder. So top end of the top 10, but more specific than that, be getting hard to predict. It really depends on how well the others do and how much they want to fight because I think they know they can
mm,
fight this year. They can fight each other and they can fight him, and he's not even necessarily the biggest target to get to. They just want to dispatch him as quickly as they can so they can get to McLaren's in theory. So it's tricky to know, but I'd be surprised if he's below eighth, which makes Yuki's job that much harder. I mean, we're not talking about what he's going to do, but if he's wanting that podium, good luck.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough task, especially when he's got so much competition this year.